What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? Hi, I'm Brent Cassity. Welcome to the Nightmare Success and Out podcast, where we explore how to overcome your fears and nightmares and set yourself free. We're going to be exploring this topic with guys that was in love and worked with, and others who survived their own nightmare. These stories can be inspiring, sometimes sad. There's some humor, but hopefully you can come away with a nugget of something that'll help you knock down some of the prisons you built up in your own mind. All right. Welcome back, Nightmare Success In and Out listeners. This is where you come for what happens when your worst fear becomes your reality. How do you adapt, survive, overcome, set yourself free? Folks, don't forget to follow, subscribe, share this thing out, like it up. It helps the show. Comment, do all those things. It helps the show. So who are we talking to today? I have a treat for the listeners out there, for Nightmare Success In and Out, people who like to hear some incredible stories. So I've got Divine G Whitfield, and I've got somebody who's been on the show before. He's episode 124, Jeffrey Deskovic. Let me give you a little background on Divine G Whitfield, because you might have heard of him lately. He was just at the Oscars. The guy was just at the Oscars. And you know why he was at the Oscars? Because he was the real life inspiration behind Colman Domingo's character in the critically acclaimed movie Sing Sing, which I went to. I loved. I never knew that I was going to be talking to Divine G. And here we are. And it was so good. And the movie was so real and made people feel so much that it was recognized by the Academy Awards for 3 quality categories: for Best Actor, for Best Screenplay Adaptation, and Best Original Song. And it was, if you haven't gone out to see it, you've got to check this movie out. You feel it. I mean, you walk out and this is something that you feel days after. But the Divine G was he was the co-writer and for the Oscar-nominated screenplay, executive producer. As depicted in the movie, Divine G served 25 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. It's in the movie. While in prison, he co-founded the Rehabilitation Through the Arts, which is an incredible. It's amazing how these guys were able to come together and put this thing together. And they talk about that, they left the prison walls and they came together and they put on these theater productions and they became something. And it was an incredible feeling. One that I left the theater thinking, my gosh, that was just more than a movie. Divine G has 8 published novels, 7 of which have been adapted into screenplays. And he continues to fight for his exoneration and has a conviction review complaint pending in the Kings County DA's conviction review unit. This case has been lingering for 7 years. So this brings in Jeffrey Deskovic. Why would Jeffrey Deskovic be somebody that Divine G should be intertwined with? Because Jeffrey was wrongly convicted of a rape and murder, and he was finally exonerated on DNA. But he had to serve 16 years in prison from 17 years old until he was 32. He founded the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice, which has freed over 14 people and has helped pass 6 laws. He is an inspiration. I am so honored to have met him. I'm so honored that he's been on the show. Can't believe he's on the show again. But for us to be able to talk about Divine G, have Jeffrey on here as a full cycle of what he's been through and now helping someone else is, how do you pay this forward? It's why we come all here to listen to these stories. I can't wait to jump into all this. Before we do, I want to recognize our show sponsor, Auto Plaza Direct, who likes spending a couple of weekends walking car lots, looking for a car. Then you spend 4 or 5 hours in the dealership to buy a car. It's kind of like a root canal appointment. Well, there's a better way to take away all that pain and hassle of getting a car. It's called Auto Plaza Direct. They're your personal car concierge. Just tell them the car you want, what you can pay, and they can go find that car for you. They'll negotiate your best price. They also offer you warranties and financing. It's all full service. Go to autoplazadirect.com to get started with your personal car concierge, the new hassle-free way, the car buying experience you deserve. Autoplaza Direct. Tell them Brent from Nightmare Success sent you. Okay, guys, here we are. Welcome in, Divine G and Jeffrey Deskovic. How is everybody?
Good, good. Thank you for inviting
I'm
me.
I'm
Pleasure
good
being
as
here.
well.
Well, it's an honor to have both of you. Um, Divine, I got to tell you, it's incredible what you've been through. It's incredible that you've been able to do what you've done when you've gotten out. And I just asked you before you got on, what was it like to you just went to the Oscars. You had a guy that played you in a movie, and he's an incredible actor, by the way, Colman Domingo, and he's up for Best Actor. What can you just let us all in on this? What did that feel like?
I mean, obviously, it was a feeling of a lifetime. It's almost undescribable because when we wrote this movie and we produced it and put it all together, I mean, we didn't even fathom that it would go this far. I mean, so it was uh, not a total shocker, but it was amazing. And Colman Domingo did a spectacular job at portraying me. I mean, and
I
he's
mean,
like,
he's a cool cat. I mean, this guy
oh yeah.
Colman Domingo is. I mean, and you know, you had to have had and I'm sure you did a connection with him as you were getting started with this movie, and you and him playing you. I mean, what was that like?
Well, we did have a lot in common. I kind of noticed once we started getting to know each other and talking and doing all the research into the whole writing process. It's like I consider myself a natural born helper. I go out of my way to help people. I get pleasure out of helping people, and he's the same way. He calls himself the equity deputy, which
I
means
like
he
that.
out of his way to really make sure that anything he gets involved in, it's about showing love and helping and pulling people up, because our
Yeah,
movie in the raw is all about humanity, helping people. Even though the wrongful conviction component is a small little element, but it's a critical element because it shows and proves that no matter what people go through, we can find ways to heal and help, and we can take bad situations and take lemons and turn it into lemonades. And one of my missions was that I vowed that I was not going to let that experience make my heart bitter.
mm,
I was going to do everything in my power to make sure it made me better, which inspired me to write 8 novels, as you mentioned, and
yeah,
screenplays. Rehabilitation through the arts actually inspired all that, because once we started the program, they taught us how to write plays. I took it to a whole new level, writing plays and writing screenplays. And I've always had a fascination for movies. Like I mentioned earlier, I used to make little karate movies. I danced with a dance group called Realism. Actually, I did a show with Stephanie Mills. I don't know if y'all recall her.
yeah.
She's somewhat of a famous
Oh yeah,
singer. I did
yeah.
a show in 1979 with her, a piece called Soap Factory Disco. I was on 2 episodes of that. So when I was young, I was always just into just doing positive stuff, and I had that entertainment bug in me, and I was a DJ,
Yeah. Well,
and I was a
I want to go.
DJ.
I want to go back, Divine, and talk about that time period because you were a guy in a neighborhood where there was a lot of bad stuff going on, and you were doing other stuff. Uh, you were a DJ, and you were a dancer, and you were doing all these different things. And let us feel that. What was all going on back in that neighborhood?
It was pretty rough, man. It was definitely rough. And as the movie depict, I went to high school performing arts for ballet and dance. So that
Hmm.
was like groundbreaking. It was truly groundbreaking. And I eventually had to move on because it was just I was going through too much backlash from it. You know, in that neighborhood, ballet was totally unacceptable. Like that's unacceptable. But I was always adventurous in the sense that I would take that chance and go out and do something different from what normal other kids would do from the neighborhood. And one thing that I would always say is that, like I told you earlier, a natural born helper.
Mm-hmm.
And as being a natural born helper, I always had a thing about, helping people. So that inspired me to take the test to become a New York City police officer. I said, you know what? I would love to be a cop because, in my opinion, the ultimate helpers are police
Mm-hmm.
officers. Unfortunately, our communities don't always portray that. It gets a
Right.
little rough. We get that little racism thing going on, the abuse and the mistreatment. But I
Yeah.
still believed in the system to the extent that, cops are put here to do the right thing.
Right.
So I had a very interesting life, and believe it or not, when I was a DJ, it inspired me. And actually, it laid groundwork to the extent that when I got out of prison, I wind up going on a tour with Lil Wayne.
I
A
read that.
tour with Lil
And you
Wayne.
had to fight for that too,
Oh yeah,
because you
fight.
had to file a certain motion to be able to do that and travel all over in Europe.
Yeah, they was not gonna let me go on that, man. My parole officer, he said, "Man, you got to be out of your mind. You think we gonna let you get out of prison after serving time for a murder and go all over the tour with a famous rapper?" But what really saved that is that, based on the overwhelming evidence of my innocence, and as you may know from the movie,
Mm-hmm.
Governor Elliot Spitzer had granted me a clemency hearing, and he was considering me for full pardon. So that
Right.
kind of contributed extensively to the fact that the judge was like, this guy, it looks, he's innocent. I mean, he's doing all this. He got master's degrees, associate's degrees, published books. He started rehabilitation through the arts. I mean, what would be the reason not to let a guy like, this
Yeah.
go on a tour like that? And it pretty worked. And the way I got that job is that Little
Little
Wayne's
Wayne.
road manager. It was Little Wayne's road manager, and all I did with him is that when I was a famous DJ, I just let him come back there and move my records, help me move the equipment, and
Mm-hmm.
just showed him a little bit of love. And when he became famous, he never forgot that.
That's
So
awesome.
this is what I used to always kind of share with people, that what you throw out into the universe is what you get back, man.
Oh
You
yeah.
show love, it comes back, and it comes back tenfold, and it comes back in ways that can boggle your mind.
Yeah. You find that out in prison too.
Yeah.
Uh, Divine, the story that leads up to the craziness that happened. So I know that you went in and you thought you were going to be a police officer. The family didn't want to lose somebody. They thought that it might be too dangerous, and so you recalibrated and said, okay, I'm not going to do that. And then you fell into a time period of something that you had never gotten into before. You had stayed away from everything, and it was it sounded to me like, from what I read, it was more of, man, I just got to do something to help the family. I got to, almost like a desperation of events that at the time in the moment, and you get tagged for something.
Right.
At that time, what was it? A 3-year sentence? Is that what
Yeah, it was a 1 to 3 sentence, and what
okay.
happened is I got into this severe automobile accident. I woke up in the hospital. I was badly beat up,
Hmm.
and I couldn't work. So
Yeah.
I'm
Had a limp.
I was a pizza delivery guy, and I was limping around. I was beat up. I couldn't work, and I that's when I made the biggest mistake of my life. And me being a natural born helper, me seeing my family struggling, the money situation was just crazy. And I snuck out and tried to sell some drugs to make a quick little, way of helping the family.
Hmm.
And that thing just turned into a living nightmare. It
Yeah.
turned into
You weren't very
a
good at it.
struggle, and I wasn't good at it. I didn't even last a couple of weeks, man. It was like I was totally
Okay.
in the wrong place.
So yeah, wrong place, wrong time, not good at it. You're not a pro.
Right.
Okay, so from this is where this story gets crazy is that you are in prison, and something goes down in the neighborhood, and all of a sudden you're drawn into a murder that happened,
Yeah.
And from what I understand, I've got Jeffrey here who's an attorney, so I am not an attorney. I am just a guy that talks. But it sounds like to me that the crazy part of this story is it's just one guy, it's
Yeah.
one witness, and not a good witness, and it brings you back to serve in this trial. And what I can't imagine. What were you thinking? Like, and you're trying to get through this bit that you've got, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you get noticed that you've got to be back here into your own place, the old neighborhood, that there's been a murder that's happened, and they're tagging you for what in the world would have been going through your mind at that time?
And it was a 100% nightmare. But for clarification, the individual that actually testified against me, it was like we had a lot of little jealousy things going on. It was a lot of it was a hell of a background story with me and him.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, sometimes in black communities, when you are a high achiever, you rack up people that come at you in certain ways. And plus, I was good in the martial arts. So when this guy used to try to bully me, he couldn't do it. So he would get upset because he can't bully me because
You
I'm
were a
a
karate
fighter.
guy.
Yeah, I was a karate guy. So I think, that's my opinion, that I think that just infuriated him even more to
Yeah.
just fabricate this and put this homicide on me. And it happened in back of my building where I lived. So
Okay.
me being in that area, it was like it was convenient for them to just say, well, it was Divine G.
Mm-hmm.
And all it took was just him fabricating this. And the craziest thing is the guy that actually did it confessed to the crime, made very clear it was him and Patrick from Queens. And then, just with my luck, after this guy confessed, he dies about a week or two later. So
And
it's
what
like
year would that have been, Divine, when all that
it
was
was
going on?
it was 1988. It was
Wow. And he
1988,
dies. He
and at
dies
the
after he
height of the
confesses.
crack era. And I know you recall that crack era, so
Mm-hmm.
it was a pretty rough time for the whole country. And
Mm-hmm.
they were just throwing guys in prison left and right. They were trying to, I guess, they were trying to get a handle on that crack epidemic because it was a
Yeah, it was
terrible
terrible.
time
Yeah.
in our history in this country, not just New York. It was all over the country.
And they were putting
So,
people away for decades for crack.
oh yeah, it was pretty rough, and I just got caught up in that madness, that whole wave.
Mm-hmm.
And once I was upstate, I mean, since I had nothing to do with it, I became a jailhouse lawyer. I said, "There's no way I'm not gonna fight this." And I lived in those prison law libraries, lived in those books, fought tooth and nail, day in, day out. And I had one prison official said, "You know what? You are the only inmate I know that's been in the law library every day for like 4 or 5 years straight."
Well, and
That was something he told me. Yeah.
and at the other interesting part of that, I thought is that I was reading through your stuff, and that's also where I think you gained the confidence that you were pretty good at writing. You know,
Yep.
writing
Absolutely.
and getting all this together. Being in the law library all the time and having to write motions and having to do the things on your own. It's weird how things happen, but
Yeah.
it's almost like that was a place that you found yourself as someone with your creativity that started to think, well, I could be a writer. I didn't even know I was a writer.
No clue I knew how to write. I had no clue I had a gift for writing. Um, my piece, The Whitfield Files, I know you may recall that.
Mm-hmm.
It was a memoir about my wrongful conviction. That won a Penn Award, and Penn was pretty big. It's a
Mm-hmm.
big international writing organization that they focuses on you know creative components that's about making the world a better place. That's one of the things that I loved about Penn. And
Mm-hmm.
I won like five awards.
Mm-hmm.
Five awards. It wasn't just that one. And once I got bitten by the writing bug, it's like, oh, I was loving it.
Well, I
I
mean,
used it.
yeah.
I was like, this is helpful. This is like helping me get through this. It was like I was able to write about things that allowed me to do what I enjoyed most,
Yeah.
finding ways to help people. It was healing. It was like, forget it. I just went
Well,
all in with it.
Divine in the movie. um, I thought it was really interesting because the rehabilitation through the arts, the RTA. Um, I mean, you were such a passionate founder of that. That I mean, you reached out to people, and it's in the movie that even someone that someone else didn't think should be in the group. You saw something in people and brought them in. How did all this happen? How did RTA happen? I mean, you were at Sing Sing.
Well, in a nutshell, I'm gonna try to keep it as short as possible. It was that we just wanted to do a play. We just wanted to do a play. It was a positive play about some of the struggles that we go through in our communities, and we did a play, and it was a success. Then we said, let's do another play, and it was a success. And then finally, a group of us said, you know what, man, this program is really helping us. It's helping it having a huge impact on the population. It's having definitely the administration was loving it because it kept guys out of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know what, we can use this as a program to teach life skills.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it basically started. And one of my missions was to find like the guys who we can look at and say was the worst of the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Which is I'm so glad we had that component in there, because when you create programs like this, guys become really overprotective. So they
Yeah.
start looking for the guys that's an easy challenge. I'm like, no, 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 no. We got to find the roughest of the roughest, the
Yeah.
ones that really need this, and that movie depict that.
No, it's what I loved about it. It really showed Divine that you reached out and then the connection that you made and the feeling that was created. It was, you know, and I don't think it's because I went to prison. I mean, my wife and other people have seen this. There's something in that movie that is so real that it's so, it's just humanity of how can people help people,
Right.
and if you're in prison, how can you free your mind and feel free even though you're contained behind the and confined behind these walls. And that's what you guys did. And it was an incredible it's an incredible program, and it's incredible how you guys came about and did this, because it's hard to do that kind of stuff in prison. It just
Oh
is.
yeah, it was a struggle. It was
But the
definitely
other
a struggle.
thing, Divine, that I want to talk about with all this, with RTA and these things that happen, and you see people come and go. You've got a long sentence, and you see people go to the parole board and they get out, and you don't get
They
out.
get back.
But here's the thing that I thought, and Jeffrey, you might want to chime in on this, because you made a point. It was something that I read, is that the guys that have been wrongfully convicted, as you were, when you go to the parole board, you need to say that you're remorseful, that you feel sorry about what happened and feel sorry about what you did, and you want out because you feel like you've been rehabilitated. In Divine's situation and in your situation, you guys, you're you can't say that, because if you say that and you get out and this all gets overturned, then that can be used against you, that you
Oh
use
yeah.
that in a parole hearing to say I'm guilty, and then you go out and there's evidence that you weren't guilty. And I can't imagine the restraint that you have to, and the courage really, to stand back from that and just say, you know what, I could get more time, but I've got to stay to where I'm at, the person that I am. And Divine, I mean, they even said to you, and it was so like it hit you to your soul in the movie, are you acting now?
Yeah. So they used RTA against me, from creating a program in which, we use acting skills merely as a life skill, building component, and to teach people basic skills so that when they got out, they stayed out. And that was taken right out of my transcripts, right out of there. And it was a commissioner named Ferguson, and he was brutal. I don't know if you remember Ferguson. People used to fake heart attacks before they want to go in front of Ferguson, because he was brutal. But for me, it worked to my advantage because they would read him, Elovich, and Brown. They would read things thoroughly. And it should be noted that in this movie, although it's about my clemency petition,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't have the clemency petition transcript, so we had to use my original, my transcripts with my actual parole release, and we just moved it around a little bit. My clemency, obviously, I didn't make it. Governor Spitzer didn't grant it,
Right.
but it was considered for full pardon based on actual innocence. So by the time I got to the clemency, excuse me, by the time I got to the parole board hearing, it was like there was that we were talking about that evidence of innocence. It was a main theme.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got a governor that had already looked at this case and said
Mm-hmm.
this case is worth looking at.
Right.
So we moved a lot around. So by the time I got there, it wasn't as hard as some other individuals. I will confess about that, because that was always my position, man. I
Right.
mean, you know, I didn't do this crime, and I got evidence showing it.
Yeah.
And I need y'all to read this. And they read it.
But the easy route would have said, "Hey, I did this. I'm rehabilitated. I just please let me out." And you didn't do that. You kept fighting for what you thought was right. Jeffrey, the letters that went on, and the campaign that went on, and that Divine was finally released. What was that connection?
Yeah, so the Divine had contacted the foundation, and he obviously saw when I launched the foundation, and we screened his case, and we determined we believed his innocence claim, and we saw a potential route to exoneration. But the road to exoneration is long. In the meantime, he was coming up for parole, so we knew he was going to stand on his innocence. So we sent a letter to the parole board, outlining what, primary and secondary reasons why we believed in his innocence. And we asked the parole board not to hold his innocence assertion against him, just evaluate the rest of his application. And if you think that he would live and remain at liberty without breaking the law, then let him out. And, it worked. There was some other letters that Divine got sent, but, our letter was there too. And, I do think it played a role. And so Divine was actually the first person that the foundation freed through any means, because we get people out however we can, and if that means getting someone out of prison, before exoneration, we want to do that.
Absolutely.
And that work for exoneration.
Much better to do it on the outside than the inside.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's how that came about. I mean, you did sum up the issue of the parole board, correct. And we had at the time, the foundation had a 2-bedroom apartment. Which you did as a pilot program. The idea to try to get additional funding to continue doing that, and then doing more of it. We never got the funding, so after a year and a half, we did wind up closing it. But Divine was
and if I'm not wrong, Jeffrey, at that time you had not finished law school and were an attorney. You were just with the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation, which is incredible. I want everybody to kind of absorb that. Jeffrey, before he was an attorney, got somebody out of prison, and it was the first person. And his, I love Jeffrey's story, and I love your story, Divine, and the fact that you two found each other and are working on this together is pretty incredible in itself. But Jeffrey, on your side of things, finally, and Divine, when you finally get out, I'm curious, because it's got to be different than, like, for me, I had a finite, I knew 6 months out that I was going to get out. And so I kind of started preparing for that. Did you have any preparation for, I'm getting out after all that time that you were in?
Well, for me, I mean, I always kind of prepared myself. I did a lot of reading, a lot of researching, so that when I did get home, I had some kind of idea of what I might want to do, where I want to go. And like I used to always teach guys in prison, is that, when you there, you got to start preparing to go home the minute you walk in prison. That preparation starts right there. You got to start, getting your life skills together.
Yeah.
Your writing skills together, because the object is to get out and stay out. And like you mentioned earlier, guys was coming back and forward to prison, and it was painful. It was really hurtful to see these guys. I'm here trying to get out, and these guys are coming back. And it was pretty.
Well, Divine, I want to sit on that point for a minute, because I was interviewed today, and one of the questions was, what do you think the difference is between the person who survives and moves forward, and the one that gives up and just can't get back into society. And my answer to that is that there's a path and a fork in the road that you have. You have to decide that you want to be a survivor, and you're going to take whatever comes at you and figure out how to deal with it. And then there's the victimhood route. And the victimhood route is that I can't believe this happened to me. It was so unfair. I'm so ashamed of being around everybody. I went to prison. I'm never going to be able to be back to what I used to be. All those things, and that can be a really deep hole, victimhood, and it can get deeper and wider. And she asked me what the difference was of like why people go that way. I'm not really sure what the difference. You lived that, and you never gave up hope, and you were looking at so many years. What do you think it was, Divine, that kept you taking that step every time you took the step and staying in that library and learning to be a writer and writing the books and not just laying down and saying, holy shit, I can't believe this happened to me?
Yeah, because the wrongful conviction contributed to me writing those 13 novels and
Yeah.
getting it. Actually, when I was in prison, I was able to get 3 novels published, a short story and a play.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all really the wrongful conviction. I just vowed that I'm going to fight this with every energy in my body. You know, murder is a very serious crime. And, you know, I don't even know how this man looks. My parole board hearing, I was like, I want to see a picture of this guy.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Like,
who is this guy?
See a picture of him. They would not let me see a picture of him. I said, man, I just did 25 years in prison. I don't even know how this guy looks. So, you know, it was just that fire, that energy, that
Divine. The other thing I'm really curious about is 25 years is a long time. It's a quarter of a century.
Very long.
What is that like to walk? I mean, you did it in the movie. I mean, I saw it in the movie. You can feel it. But what did it feel like to you to walk out and re-enter society in 25 years? And what changed? Like, I mean, and Jeffrey, you're here. You did 16. What was the biggest thing that you noticed that changed? Because I have a lot of guys that have done a lot of time in prison. They say, you know, it's like going from black and white to color, and all of a sudden you're trying to jump in a moving car. But what was it like for you?
Well, for me, you know, I mean, the cars definitely changed. There's all the cars.
Yeah.
You know, I had a problem with crossing the street. It was like when I got out, when I first came to a crosswalk, it was like I was nervous. I couldn't cross the street. It was like, hold up. This looked like it's supposed to be easy, but the cars, everything looked like it was going too fast. I'm like, and you know, those are these culture shocks that you go through after spending all them years in prison. I mean, it's physically impossible for you to walk out of an environment like that and not be severely impacted.
Yeah.
I don't care how much you prepare. I don't care how much you read and try to get newspapers to learn. But once you get there and you physically there, it's a whole new world. And I mean, it boils down to resilience. Some
Yeah, it
people
does.
just
And
have the power to go further than others. Some people may not, you know, respond with that high intensity of resilience.
yeah.
And for me, you know, I'm a Taurus the bull. I'm kind of like stubborn. I got that stubbornness in me. So it was like I just, you
Well,
know,
I know that you did all that stuff in prison. So getting out and all those things that changed, you didn't lose yourself. What I think is inspiring in itself, because a lot of people can get institutionalized. And when I say institutionalized, people get institutionalized on the outside. You know, they can get into a bad job, bad marriage, bad whatever, health crisis, whatever. They get institutionalized, but people get institutionalized with their routines and stuff in prison. But you didn't lose yourself in prison because you were doing things and being productive in prison. The Divine G Entertainment did, and the family that you came out to. I didn't want to skip over that. What all when you came out? What did you come out to?
definitely had a supportive family. My mother was 100% supportive. All my sisters was supportive, and you know, I had my aunt, my
Mm-hmm.
nieces, my cousins. I had a support base, which somewhat helps. It's if you don't have that support base, it's going to be a thousand
It's
times
harder,
harder.
a lot harder.
So
Yep.
I did have that.
Okay.
And by the time I got out, I started Divine G Entertainment within 6 months of getting out of prison. I
Wow.
vowed that I was going to start my own company. I always had a dream of having my own company. I started publishing my own books, and
Yeah.
they didn't do spectacularly well, but it was a dream that I've always maintained. And to this day, I'm still paying taxes on this company. It's not making a whole lot, but it's my company and it's still alive. It's up, still running. And I will say once again, it's about never giving up, and it's about just believing in yourself, believing in the power of that dreams come true.
Mm-hmm.
And once we started coming up with some ideas about possibly doing something for rehabilitation through the arts, I was full throttle with that, because I always believed that that story must be told, because Dino calls it one of the best kept secrets in prison. That's the best kept secret.
Can
We were saving lives.
Yeah,
Guys was
you
getting
guys were
home.
you guys were saving lives.
We were saving lives, and it was really all about people helping people. It was about healing and helping. And I mean, look what happened, man. Miracles come true.
Well, walk us through how it happened. I mean, how Divine G ends up being played by a major movie star that ends up being on the Academy Award Best Actor nomination. How does that happen? What happened, Divine?
Well,
How did that come about?
Well, what happened is this. I guess in my situation, I already had an interesting story. I
Mm-hmm.
was in prison for a crime I didn't commit.
Mm-hmm.
I had got a governor to agree to, look at my case. I wrote massive novels. I was a published author multiple times over. I was doing so much that at the point when a person of interest came up about doing the program, he was like, well, what about Divine G? He's a founding member.
Mm-hmm.
The guy definitely fights for the underdog. I love the underdog,
Yep.
always fight for the underdog. And I was kind of like a rebel to some extent, because a lot of guys was becoming overprotected of the program, not letting people in. And I was always that voice that spoke out.
Which came
Me
across in the
being
movie.
always that voice that spoke out. And we even had some civilians that, I had a little tension with them too, but I used to make sure people's integrity was real high. My
Mm-hmm.
integrity was extremely high. So when the movie makers like Craig and Clint and Monique, when we all got together,
How'd they
and
reach
we
out
had
to you? How'd they reach out to you? How'd you
well,
get
through
contact?
Brent,
How'd that
Brent,
happen?
Brent, Brent Buell, and
Okay.
remember this breaking the mummy's code had got a lot of media attention too. It was in Entertainment Weekly,
Mm-hmm.
it was in New York Times,
Mm-hmm.
and what Greg and Clint was doing is they were looking for, a story that they can actually do a movie about. And because our movie had, no, not a movie, our play had got so much media attention, New
Mm-hmm.
York Times did a major article on us, as well as Entertainment Weekly.
Right.
So he saw this zany movie with guys that, doing breaking the mummy's code with, Freddy Krueger, the Black Plague. We was all over the place, and we actually pulled this off.
Mm-hmm.
So when they decided that they wanted to do something like that, they just met us. We all came in, we sat down, and it was like a 8 year process to write that script.
Is
That
that what it
script,
was?
it did not happen overnight. We had multiple versions of the script that just wasn't working. This wasn't working. That
You know,
wasn't working. This
you,
wasn't working.
yeah.
And once we finally got the script that we felt that was conducive to where we wanted to take it, I was telling everybody, I told everybody, yo, man, I'm telling y'all, the stars is open up on this one. I'm telling you, the stars is open up.
Yeah.
And to this day, the whole team says, Divine, you predicted. They was calling me the prophet at one
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. And it's hard to get a hit. I mean, going in, there's 85% of the cast that's either in prison or have been in prison there that were part of the program. How did that come about?
Well, this movie had to be by the people that
Which
actually
I
own
want to
it.
just point out, that's really cool, by the way. I didn't know that until the end of the movie.
And another thing that's historic in our movie, everybody on this movie gets paid a equal rating.
I saw that.
Everybody on this movie has equity in this movie.
It's huge.
Everybody has a percentage in this movie, which sometimes I think we got a lot of pushback from Hollywood because we was coming in here changing up that whole payment process. Sometimes those higher ups, who is a very small percentage, don't want to give up that type
Sure.
of position. But it was groundbreaking in that regard, and
Yeah.
I think it fitted our movie just right because it was all about community. It was all about humanity. It was all
No,
about helping.
it was everything. It's groundbreaking to the point of how you did everything, Divine. It fit everything. And when I saw that all those people, and it made sense, they were actors. They were just actors in prison. So of course they could play a role.
Right.
You made a cameo role of
Yeah, I made a little cameo.
uh-huh.
Yeah, signing one of my books.
That was cool.
Yeah.
So I want to jump into something that I know this has been fantastic for you, but you've got it around your neck trying to get this exoneration. Jeffrey, where do things stand right now with how this has played out? Because it's 7 years in the process, about 7 years about how you took Divine to get that movie made. But Jeffrey, where are we?
Sure. So, a few years after Divine got out, we parted ways with our staff attorney, and Divine stayed with a former staff attorney, which I understood. I mean, he continued to do volunteer work actually for the foundation. He was doing videography and taking photos and uploading countless videos to our YouTube channel, Deskovic Foundation, and he would keep me abreast of how things were going here and there. And after about 5 years of his application just sitting over there in the conviction review unit, Kings County DA's office, I got my law license. And Divine came back around and said, "Look, I'd like you guys to represent me again." So I was thrilled to do that. I always believed in this case. And I said, "Look, I want to add Oscar Michelin to the team. He's an advisory board member. He's exonerated 9 people. Want to add that experience." So we began representing Divine. So that meant we had a meeting with the head of the conviction review unit and the line attorney. And to start the meeting, the unit chief said, "Look, I haven't read things, but I'm just giving you the meeting out of courtesy." So the line attorney started talking, and she was going in the direction of wanting to close, saying that she wanted to close his case, and I knew it was important for her not to be able to actually say that, because then it would be hard politically for the boss not to. So I said, "Well, what about this witness? Do you interview that person? No. How about this one, that one, this one, that one? No, no, no." So then I said, "Well, how can you say that the case is hitting a wall and all these witnesses you haven't spoken to?" So then, ignoring her, I go to the unit. I say to the unit chief, "Well, look, can we submit a memo to you? We'd like to summarize all the evidence of Divine's innocence, and we're going to juxtapose that with this one informant." And so we ultimately submitted a 12, 13 pages of, outlining the evidence of Divine's innocence, which I'd like to just briefly recount here. So the actual perpetrator confessed, and said that he committed the crime with a man named Patrick from Queens. Divine is a Brooklynite, has never lived in Queens, and his name is not Patrick. He confessed to his brother as well. Then there was an alibi witness, which Foundation found Brian Devery and Marjorie Shack, who knew Divine from the neighborhood, said she heard the gunshot and two people running. They ran past her. That it was not Divine. That story was corroborated by 2 other people. We found an alternative suspect that had been in a love triangle with the perpetrator, whose car had been set on fire, who that was suspiciously left out when he was interviewed.
Okay.
So we had this mountain of evidence, and he did nothing with it for a year. And then I got wind that he was speaking at a panel discussion on wrongful conviction in Brooklyn. So I went there so I could buttonhole him on the side and just remind him, you got to do something here. We've sent you this memo. So when I spoke to him on the side, he said, "Look, yeah, I've just got a tickle on that," because he's got some kind of device that gives like a tickler, like a reminder, to get to Divine's case. And another 6 months go by and he doesn't do anything. And then we get word that he's going to be leaving the unit, going into private practice. And, we reach out to him again several times. Look, just read it. I mean, how, you can decide everything based on the papers. And, he never did. The most he did was he made sure the case was assigned to a different prosecutor. That line attorney left the unit. He assigned it to someone else, but that's it. And we've been stuck. And since then, Oscar emailed the line attorney. I piggybacked and emailed also, and we're stuck. So our latest tactic, what we're doing is this: is that we have a petition. We're calling on for amassing petition signatures. Asking the petition calls on the Brooklyn DA Eric Gonzalez to order his conviction review unit just to make a decision.
Right, let us know something.
Just do something.
And
It's got to be incredibly frustrating.
So we've been doing new media in order to facilitate that using social media and getting media appearances, and so we're doing that as a tactic right now. And look, at some point we're not going to wait anymore. We're going to just pull the case from there and just file and litigate. But we're hesitant to do that right now
because it takes time.
It'll be 2 years, and we don't want Divine to walk around with the conviction. Look, he did 25 years.
Yeah,
he's off parole. He's not on. This is just about clearing his name,
right?
And it's been over there for 7. We don't want him to wait another 2 years. But the big contrast is that, while Colman Domingo rightfully gets accolades, for playing Divine G and Sing Sing,
yeah,
the real Divine G is struggling still. We know with conviction.
Yeah.
In fact, you wanted to go to an awards, a different awards event
over in Europe, right? Couldn't go because of his felony conviction.
Go to BAFTA.
A lot of people don't know that there's. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that there's countries that won't let you in if you have a felony conviction, and it's a lifetime sentence. You can't get in. I want to take a break here, and when we get back, I want Jeffrey, you to give us where we can go to help this out, and I also, Divine, want to go back to you and really get your takeaway through all this that you've been through, so that these guys that are listening and there, what's your biggest takeaway through all this that you've survived and been through? Before we do that, I want to recognize, a lot of people don't like how they look online. Many individuals think there's no hope when it comes to managing your reputation on Google online. Well, there's hope. It's called Discoverability Company, and they can help you. Whether you're building a reputation from scratch or you're repairing search results after a negative news story, Discoverability Company can also help you how you're portrayed on popular AI services like ChatGPT. To learn more, visit discoverability.co. They're even launching a do-it-yourself SEO option, a course for individuals who want to take on their search results on their own budget and speed. Listeners of Nightmare Success can take $100 off the DIY SEO course with coupon code Nightmare Success. I also want to recognize that Nightmare Success Podcast is sponsored by the White Collar Support Group. It's the world's first support group devoted to people navigating the white-collar criminal justice system. I'm a member of the White Collar Support Group, and I can tell you this is a bunch of people who can help each other through the criminal justice journey for free. Whether you're just starting your journey or you've made it through to the other side, this is great space for you. You can join us on Zoom Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. For information, go to prisonus.org. That's prisonus.org. Start here. So, Jeffrey, if somebody is listening to this, and there'll be a lot of people listening to this for a lot of reasons, how can we reach out and do something to help move this forward?
Sure. So first and foremost, sign the petition, www.freediving.org. Very easy to remember.
I'll put in the show notes. freediving.org. That's the most important thing. Sign it. And next most important thing is encourage other people to do that, whether that's through just share it,
whether that's social media. If you know people that are into new media or otherwise have a big platform, please connect us with us. We'd love to come on those other platforms as well as a way of reaching people. Yeah. And look, for the incarcerated population, encourage your friends, your family to sign. Plenty of people that are not incarcerated, but we need everybody to sign this, and I do think that it will
make a difference. Jeffrey, you're a good man. You're a good man. You're doing great things. You have lived through a nightmare of your own, and now helping people and coming full circle. It's got to make you feel good because you're paying it forward. doing the things and you know, you got out and became an attorney. You're an attorney,
Yeah.
Jeffrey. I mean, you're doing incredible things. I'm
Huge.
incredibly proud of you. And whenever I get a chance, I share your story because I think it's just an incredible story. Divine, you've been through so much, and you know, the way that you're portrayed in the movie, you can't help but like what you did, how you did it, how you reached out to people, how you didn't give up, how you stayed resilient. What do you think's your biggest takeaway through this whole life that you've lived?
My biggest take is I'm gonna sum it up kind of, and I think I said it a little earlier. Is what you throw out into the universe is what you get back, man. I'm convinced of that. It's if you throw out love and compassion and working and having an open mind and healing, it comes back and it comes back tenfold. I think that kind of sums up my life. It's crazy like that. And I mean, it's easy for people to say, yeah, I was a good guy, I did this and I did that. But you could just talk to the people that know me and they'll, tell you that. I went on Lil Wayne's tour solely because I just showed a little bit of love to his road manager. That's it. It was just plain and simple. And he contributes his success to my success. Yo, if it wasn't for you and how you was helping, I was helping him and his little sister. I used to have them moving my records and stuff like that. And I've always had that mission about trying to reach back to help other people.
Yeah.
It was always about trying to help other people, which is why I call myself a natural born helper.
Yeah.
And that's why I think me and Colman Domingo had that in common.
He played that so well in the movie.
And it sums up my journey, man. It just sums it up. What you throw out is what you get back.
What you got to get back.
Tenfold.
Man, if that's not wisdom, if that's not something to live by, guys, I appreciate you guys being on it, and it's both of you are very inspiring for people to listen to because this show is about hope. When I got started this show, we're in our 4th season. It's about hope. It's not a prison show. It's people who are getting through their nightmares and they're surviving. And both of you have done that. Both of you have shown, you can get knocked down and lay down, but you get back up because you got a reason to get back up. And both of you have done that. And I think I can't wait for these guys to hear this inside the prisons. I can't wait for the listeners to hear it out there because if they're stuck in their own prison of their mind, you guys, what you've talked about tonight will help. Talking about gratitude, I want to give a shout out to Homestead Financial Home Mortgage. If you've got home mortgage needs, Greg Afdiev is your guy. He knows it all. They let me use this podcast room, all this fancy stuff, the lights and everything. So thank you so much. If you're looking for a book out there, I know that there's a lot of books that Divine's got. Go to Divine G Whitfield, and they're all there. I looked at it today. It's all lined up across the bottom there. And if you're on Amazon, go ahead and buy my book too, Nightmare Success. So
there you go. Right. I'm on Amazon, Barnes & Noble.
So, and if you're looking for anything else that I'm doing, go to brentcassity.com. I spell it wrong. I spell it with a TY, not a DY. And as I used to say to my people, when I was writing my emails back and forth from Leavenworth, stay strong. I'll do the same. Divine G, Jeffrey, Deskovic, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure being here.
Nightmare Success, in and out.
All right. Thank you.